Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our main event! Hosted by Eric McMahon, it's Cageside with John Morgan!
And what's up? Welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I am your host, Eric McMahon. Last week, slow week in MMA, but not anymore. UFC 280 this weekend. I am fired up. But before we get into all of that, make sure to go back, check us out on our archives, listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can watch this episode on YouTube or grindcitymedia.com. And without further ado, the guy who's going to help me break down this massive, monumental, damn near Super Bowl-ish card this weekend, my man, John Morgan. What's up, buddy?
Dude, I'm so glad you said that, Super Bowl-ish. You know, I was thinking about that as we were about to go. Like, how do we describe to people that maybe aren't necessarily hardcore MMA fans that don't watch it? Because it may sound like we're just saying, like, oh, it's hype. But I feel like this is one that from the most casual fan to the most hardcore fan, like, everybody is pumped up for this card. And look, UFC 281 is looming in November. That's phenomenal as well. But right now, this one from Abu Dhabi is stacked top to bottom. And I think that's the best way to describe it to somebody that maybe isn't watching all the time, is that, like, this feels like a Super Bowl. Even though that's not the way this sport works, this card is just so stacked top to bottom that everybody is pumped for it.
Man, I'm just to get back on that pay-per-view train, and you've said it repeatedly that now the UFC is just stacking pay-per-view cards, and they probably couldn't stack a bigger card. Like we said, we got Izzy coming up in November at MSG, but I can't think of a bigger, like, top to bottom main card than we got on this one. But we're going to get into it really quick. So, but before I do, let's just kind of recap what happened this past week. UFC fight night. You were at the Apex Center. We don't have to go down the card, but Alexa Grasso rattled off her fourth straight victory. Her boxing is phenomenal. She's now looking like she has the chops on the ground to compete with everybody. With 4 straight victories, is a title shot on the line? Or is it looming?
I think we got to wait and see what happens at UFC 280. So Alexa Grasso gets the decision win over Viviane Araújo, as you said, main event. Looked good. Alexa Grasso used to be a 115er. She's moved up to 125, 4-0 there. Her boxing has always been incredible. I mean, literally, like, some of the slickest boxing in the game, man or a woman, just very fun. But now she's adding in some takedown defense. Now she's kind of rounding out the game, as you have to do, of course, to compete at the highest level. But she did. And Viviane Araújo, I mean, look, a tough test, really, really strong, powerful Brazilian, great grappling, good striking as well, landed some big shots, but Alexa just looked really, really good. But you know what? Kudos to Alexa Grasso. I guess, sometimes you want to hype yourself, but she was very realistic going in. She said, look, I feel like this is a semifinal fight. There's basically 4 of us, those 2 plus the 2 that are competing at UFC 280 in a fight that, funnily enough, isn't even really one of the most hype fights as we start to talk about it, but it's a big one. Manon Fiorot versus Katlyn Chookagian. And I think you got to kind of see what happens there to figure out what happens next for the champion, Valentina Shevchenko. So what I would say is it was a great performance. I think everybody's taking Alexa Grasso for real right now. I don't know that it was enough to guarantee herself a number one contender spot, but I do believe that we'll wait and see what happens this week at UFC 280, and then we'll determine from there.
And it really, I'm glad you kind of brought that up, because this is going to be my next point, is I think in that, title eliminator fight coming up in Abu Dhabi, if that fight really pushes the pace and somebody looks great, I think they're going to get the shot. Because just this past weekend, albeit highly technical fight, the pace wasn't pushed that much. And we know the matchmakers there, Dana White, they want that high-paced, high-action fight. So, coming into this weekend, if this women's fight looks like it's a barn burner, then the title shot is probably on the line. Do I stand corrected there?
No, you're right. But here's what's so funny about mixed martial arts that's different than other sports, right? Is it's not necessarily just completely a bracket, right? It's not like win and move on. Now, you got so many. Here's the variables I think that are at play. Number 1, Katlyn Chookagian has already challenged for the title. So if she wins, maybe she doesn't get another title shot right away. Sometimes the UFC doesn't like to book fights that they've already booked before. So maybe Katlyn Chookagian gets pushed out. Now, if Manon Fiorot wins, she's kind of the hot thing in the division right now, on the rise right now. If she looks good, maybe she jumps in. But here's the other thing I'll throw in as well. You got to wait and see what the 2023 pay-per-view schedule looks like. And why do I say that? Well, if they go to Mexico, which they haven't gone in a few years, you might want to have Alexa Grasso in a title fight there. Now, there's talks of maybe March going to England. If they go to England, then maybe, again, if Manon Fiorot wins, maybe you want the French fighter, close to England over there in the European market. So I think that there's just so much at play here. But you're absolutely right. It's can you put an exclamation mark with your performance? You know what I mean? You want to be that name that people are talking about. As right now we're saying, hey, Alexa Grasso, very fine performance. It's clear that she's a top contender. Looked great, but we're not going, oh my gosh, wow, you got to give her the title shot now. You know what I mean? Whereas, so if somebody can make a statement like that, you want to make a statement with your performance when you can, so that the fans are going, Dana White, UFC, that's the fight I want to see. You got to put it together. Alexa Grasso had a fine performance, but she wasn't able to make that kind of statement. So we'll see if somebody can make that kind of statement here in Abu Dhabi.
Somebody who made a statement this weekend, Jonathan Martinez, for only the 16th time in UFC history, ends a fight on leg kicks. And against who? The tough, the durable, I'm going to say it, even though we say it a lot, the legend that is Cub Swanson. What a performance.
I mean, look, Cub Swanson is in the UFC Hall of Fame. I mean, when you're in the Hall of Fame, you're a legend. There's no question about it. And cutting down to 135 pounds for the very first time looked good. It's kind of a weird week, at the media day. He didn't speak to the media. We worried, was the weight cut bad? What was going on? But overall, I thought Cub looked great. He weighed in at 135 pounds on the dot. Didn't even use the 1 pound allowance. So he made it no problem. Championship weight. But Jonathan Martinez just looked fantastic. I mean, Jonathan Martinez was not there to be a part of anybody else's story. You know what I'm saying? He came out there. He looked good. The devastating leg kicks and just nasty stuff. And kudos to Cub Swanson for trying to power through it. I mean, you saw him a couple times in those nasty leg kicks. He kind of went to the ground, but got himself back up. But eventually, it was just too much, and he couldn't do it. Big win for Jonathan Martinez, and called out Dominic Cruz afterwards. Said, hey, that's a fight I'd like to have afterwards. So great performance with Jonathan Martinez, a guy that's kind of been flying under the radar. And it's funny because, you started out by saying making a statement. Jonathan Martinez has become one of my favorite fighters in the entire UFC because he is scared to death of public speaking. And it's so funny because, I mean, I get it. Like, that's kind of a common fear, right, of standing in front of people and talking to people. But when you think about what this man does for a living, he goes into a cage and gets into a fist fight on national television. But it's so funny because he's always kind of scared of doing interviews. But he had a great post-fight interview. He kind of got over those fears after that performance, called out Dominic Cruz, and he's just growing, man. He's a guy that's flown under the radar, but I think somebody that's going to look to be in the rankings very soon. He's outside the top 15 right now, and that bantamweight division is stacked. But Jonathan Martinez is a name you want to keep your eye on for sure.
And I don't know if I read a tweet of yours or read an article of yours on Underground where you actually went in, you actually mentioned what you just mentioned here about his fear of public speaking. And then we saw the pre-fight press conference, and it was like, I'm here to have fun. I'm here to go in there, handle my business, and come out with a win on Saturday night.
It's crazy. And then it's literally, you see the end of it, like, we're like, okay, that's the last question, thanks. And you can hear him on the microphone going, oh my God. And he like visibly just is like, oh, like he lets out this sigh of relief, like, oh my God, thank God I don't have to speak anymore. It's crazy. But then he goes out there and just is absolute killer in the cage, man. Jonathan Martinez, legit dude.
All right. I hate that I have to ask these questions, but I got to ask. Does Cub have anything left? Is this his last fight? Are we going to see him again? How do you rebound from a loss like this in a storied career of Cub Swanson? How do you rebound? What's next for him?
It's a fair question. And like you said, it sucks to have to ask it, but it's fair. I mean, Cub's like 38 at this point. He's been around for a long time. He's got a growing family, bunch of kids. And he said, look, I know retirement is coming sooner rather than later, but I will say I did not get that impression afterwards. You feel it. I mean, Eric, you've been in there enough. You see when guys start to take off the gloves and they're lingering around a little bit, and you can see him kind of wandering around talking to the team. I didn't see any of that from Cub. He gave a lot of respect to Jonathan Martinez. He, talked to the team and the coaches, and when he left the cage, I mean, he left with a point. His wife was there, grabbed her hand, and they walked back. But it felt like, definitely there was frustration, of course. I mean, his body failed him. You know what I mean? That happens. I mean, and it wasn't necessarily him. You got to credit Jonathan Martinez. It wasn't like some freak injury. It was something that happened from a devastating leg kick. But it looked like he still had that purpose in his walk. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm mad, but I want to get this. I mean, when he got in there, he was intense. So I don't get that feeling. I don't think he's done yet. I know what he really wants to do is I guess there's a new venue in Palm Springs, California, where he's from. They just built like a 12,000 seat arena, and he really wants to have the UFC come there, let him headline. He's mentioned maybe him and Uriah Faber. I mean, if you imagine that, Cub Swanson, Uriah Faber in California, like that's going to sell out instantly. So I think, maybe we're down to one or two more. But I know he wants one of them to be there. He's getting close to wrap it up. He understands he's not in the middle of a championship run, but I think he's got a little bit left in him. It's just a matter of finding matchups that make sense for him. What'll be interesting to see is, is it at 135 or is it at 145? He said that he wanted to go down to bantamweight to kind of challenge himself and to really push his body to the limit. And he did that. But I read, even though he didn't speak to us in the media, I read an interview that he gave to the UFC where he kind of admitted it was so difficult for him to be dialed in to the point to get to 135 that he felt he wasn't a great father during that time in training camp because he had to sacrifice everything to really focus on himself, and he doesn't want to do that again. So we'll see. We'll see if it's at 35, 45. I think he's got a couple left, though.
Well, good, because he kind of was one of the first with that innovative style, that loosey-goosey, that switching stance. He's just a fun guy to watch fight. I hope I do get to see another one. So, and that's just selfish of me. So, Cub, just to please me, see another one. All right? So there we go. But hey, that's behind us. Let's look forward. It is finally here. UFC 280 from Abu Dhabi this Saturday, daytime, by the way. So we still get our night. Charles Olivera, Islam Makhachev for the lightweight world champion. That's just the main event. I want to go down the co-main. Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw, not to be outdone. Peter Yan, Sean O'Malley. It's Christmas time here.
It really is. The UFC really stacking pay-per-views these days. Used to a long time ago, you had to make sure you had big fights to put on Fox in the headliner. Yeah, you had like these different places you were serving everything. Now everything's being done through ESPN and ESPN Plus pay-per-view. So they're really loading up these pay-per-view cards. And so it's not just about one fight in the main event. As you said, that's three very intriguing matchups at the top of this bill. And then, as you said, it's rounded out. We mentioned Caitlin Chukagian versus Manon Fiorot, which is perhaps a number one contender fight. Beneil Dariush versus Mateusz Gamrot, which is perhaps a number one contender fight. Yeah. And then you start going to the prelims, and you got like Bilal Muhammad and Sean Brady. I mean, there's great fights, but those top three fights.
That could end up being fight of the night. Right there. The main event on the prelims could end up being the fight of the night.
100%. And let's be honest with you, that could be a main event on like a fight night card. It could very easily. I mean, that's a very intriguing fight. But these top three fights at the top of the bill in the pay-per-view, so intriguing for so many different reasons. It's great. I think what makes a great fight is A, when the stakes are big, but B, when there's storylines and things going around them. And all three of these fights really have that. So cannot wait. And as you said, important to know for everybody, don't show up at the bar on Saturday night looking to, watch these fights. These are happening early because it's in Abu Dhabi. They're putting it on prime time in Abu Dhabi rather than the middle of the night. So prime time for them means morning for us. I know for me here on the West Coast in Las Vegas, that's an 11 a.m. start time for the pay-per-view main card. So 2 p.m. on the East Coast. So make sure you adjust your schedules accordingly for Saturday. You still get to watch some other things after you watch the great fights.
There we go. Get a lot of college football to follow in later that night. Now, where do you want to start? We're gonna take most of the time here. We're gonna just talk about the three-headed monster. Okay? Do you want to start top, bottom, top? Where do you want to start? I'll let you decide.
I mean, you got to start at the top because that's the one that has everybody's interest. That's the fight that honestly, Eric, people behind the scenes, as you know, in the MMA world are saying, is this like the most anticipated fight of the year? Because it's one that you're just absolutely torn on. Charles Olivera, the champion, has a name. He may not have a belt around his waist, but I think we all look at him in the industry as
champ.
He's still the champ to all of us. He missed weight last time out, although it was a little bit of a weird situation. So he was technically stripped of the belt, but we all still look at him as the champion. But then you have Islam Makhachev, the protege of Habib Nurmagomedov, the heir apparent to the Eagle that everybody. It's the quality of these athletes is these are amazing, but then it's the way their styles match up as well. Like each of them has something for each other. It's 50-50, bro. It's a coin flip matchup, man. This fight
not
is
according
amazing.
to Vegas. Not according to Vegas. And this is what, can we stop disrespecting the Bronx here? Can we stop disrespecting this man? Right? He's what, 8 or 9 victories in a row right now, maybe even up to 10. The likes of, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, the list goes on, and he is an underdog in every damn fight. We need to stop disrespecting this man.
Look, it's 11 in a row right now. 11 in
my
a
bad.
row right now. And the names that you mentioned, Charles Olivera has one of the most intriguing careers in UFC history, right? This man came to the UFC as a baby. I think he was 20 when he made his debut. I mean, he was a kid. May have even been 19. I can't even remember. But I remember he was a kid. He actually physically grew while he was. That's how young he was when he got there. He still had a growth spurt left. He battled through the years, right? Like he would balance back and forth between lightweight and featherweight, and the weight cut was a difficult issue for him, and then he had some losses along the way. And look. There's this thing around Charles Olivera that he quits in fights. And look, it's a mean thing to say, but it is true. I mean, if you go back and you look through his history, there were times where you could visibly see it. It's that old saying, if you're the hammer or if you're the nail. When he was the hammer, he was tearing through people. But when he was the nail, he didn't necessarily deal with it well. But that's in the past, man. That is not that guy anymore. The focus has changed.
By Michael Chandler, he had been dropped by Dustin Poirier, and everybody said that leading into those fights. Is he going to quit? Is he going to quit? I'm going to make him quit. If you're getting dropped versus those dudes, he may have gotten dropped by Gaethje as well. Like in all of these, and he does not stop anymore. Let's stop. Let's just stop disrespecting this guy, right?
I agree.
I know you don't, but maybe a lot of your colleagues in print disrespecting this guy all the time, and it's crazy to me.
I completely agree. That guy is not there anymore. People do change, man. People have revelations. People have, they learn lessons. They change, and the determination there is not. This man does not quit. He is an incredible champion. And you just look at those names: Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, Tony Ferguson. I mean, you could keep going. But just take that 3-pack right there. His most recent fights: Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler. I mean, those are 3 studs, and he finished them all. Not even a decision. Not even just outlasted him, outpointed. Got finishes of all 3 of those guys, man. This dude is on a different level right now. But Islam Makhachev has got the perfect stylistic matchup for him as well, and that's what makes this so intriguing. Islam Makhachev only been once beaten in his entire career, right? And that was that was way back in 2015. He's on a nice winning streak as well. I believe 10-fight win streak with Islam Makhachev as well. Now, where you get to is the fact that he doesn't necessarily have those names. Like you look at the wins that he's had most recently, very impressive names, but not Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, Thiago Moises, Drew Dober. Good names, solid names, and talented names, but not that upper echelon. And so I think that's why a lot of people are saying, okay, maybe, not the same quality of wins to get him here. But I mean, Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, dispatched of them both in the first round, his last 2 matchups.
Almost took Bobby Green's arm home with them.
That's it. I mean, the striking is getting a lot better. You hear Javier Mendez saying that he's working on his striking nonstop. He's a way better striker than Khabib ever was. He's working all the time, but it's his grappling that's amazing as well. I mean, as you said, the submission finishes are incredible. He's been training with Khabib his entire life, since they were kids back in Dagestan. This dude is legit. But Charles Olivera, that guy that's got submissions from everywhere. And the thing I always love about Charles Olivera is that when you go through his record or you look at his resume, it's not that like he has one good submission. Like there's some people that have that go-to era guy. Dude, you don't want to get trapped in that Ronda Rousey armbar, right? Or you don't want to let so and so get on your back because they have a nasty rear naked choke. Charles Olivera has every submission, man. Like it's like wherever you are. So I'm pumped for this fight, man. I'm pumped for this fight. If you can't tell, Super Bowl, baby.
I can tell, and I mean it's radiating between us right now. But I just have to let's stay on this main event really quick because, as we said, the betting line, Makhachev minus 180. He's a minus 180 favorite. Charles Olivera plus 155 dog, right? So basically, this is not a pick'em fight. These odds aren't very close. I mean, they're close enough. It's a 60-40 kind of ish split here. But with the names, it's crazy. But you have Javier Mendez, the famous coach of AKAs, the famous coach of Daniel Cormier, Cain Velasquez, Nurmagomedov. Guess who he says the greatest lightweight of all time is?
I mean,
but I can't discredit what Javier Mendez is going to say.
It's tough, right? I mean, look, you always have to say. I mean, Habib has said the same thing, right? Habib's like, "Oh, Islam's better than me." I walked away because it's his time now. Islam's a greater fighter than I ever was. And look, is there some truth to that? And is there some promotional stuff going on there as well? I mean, of course, it's like when people sometimes like people will hold Dana White accountable for something he says, like, "Oh, I can't believe he says that." Like, bro, the dude is promoting his product. You know what I mean? Like he's literally trying to sell you on something. He is a promoter. The same thing here. But I mean, you look at it, if he's able to go out there and dispatch a Charles Olivera, it certainly makes a statement. Now, I think that Islam Makhachev will have to beat some of those other names that we mentioned to get those kind of accolades. I mean, this would be a massive first step in that direction, getting the UFC lightweight title, beating a guy like Charles Olivera. But then you got to start defending it against some of those bigger names. And to be fair, Islam Makhachev has never shied away from facing the bigger names. It's just that those bigger names didn't necessarily want to fight him, and understandably
it's a dangerous
so, right?
fight, like a number 1 or number 2 contendership fight. You ain't fighting Islam.
That's it, and that's smart, right? I mean, he wasn't necessarily that big superstar, so guys didn't want to fight him because they knew he was an incredibly difficult fight, but he didn't necessarily bring a lot of eyeballs to the table, right? Because he wasn't the big star yet. That's starting to change a little bit. He's starting to get that recognition, but people just didn't want to fight him because, look, if he's a tough fight, and if he beats you, it's bad for you, and if you beat him, you don't necessarily get that respect where people go, "Oh my gosh." Now I think people would get that. If you beat Islam Makhachev, like, you're going to get that respect. But you talk about the betting line. This is an interesting betting line, right? It opened up at plus 250 for Charles Olivera. So he was a huge runner. Got bet all the way up to around like plus 325. So that early money, people really were coming on Islam. But now look at it. All the people that understand the sport is starting to come in a little bit, and now we're all the way down to where we are. So still, as you said, to me, this should be a pick 'em fight, but we know that's not exactly the way the odds work. They're designed to get money in, but to me, if I'm looking at odds, this is a pick 'em fight, man. This is 50-50.
This is a fight I am not laying money on. How about we go there?
There you go.
All right, so co-main event, but a main event anywhere in the Western Hemisphere, right? is the champ, Aljamain Sterling, versus the former champ, the former coming off a suspension about a year ago, TJ Dillashaw. This has fireworks written all over it. You know what? Aljamain Sterling, great striking, great wrestling. TJ Dillashaw, maybe the best striker in the division, just from a stance and tactical spacing, knowing his length, knowing his reach. With the acclaimed coach that he has. He's also a college wrestler as well. He's going to be hard to take down. Nobody takes down TJ Dillashaw.
Phenomenal fight.
Where do you see this fight going?
Phenomenal fight. This is another one, man, and that's what makes this so intriguing that I'm completely torn between right now on who's going to win this fight. I like Aljamain Sterling's grappling abilities. I always have. I think he's the favorite here, a slight favorite for a very good reason. I think Aljamain. Yeah, I think that he didn't get respect for a long time, and I think he's starting to get that respect now. After the kind of a real win, if you will, over Peter Yan last time out. He got the DQ win back in 2021, and a lot of people kind of piled on him. I mean, he took a bad illegal knee, and people were kind of suggesting that maybe he played it up a little bit. He did a little bit of acting in the cage. I don't necessarily agree with that assessment, but nevertheless, a great win streak. I think the last one out, he's starting to get some respect, but it's tough because you got TJ Dillashaw, who is a phenomenal fighter. As he tell you, no one beat me for the belt. He does. Mm-hmm. Look, he owned up to the fact. Look, he cheated. There's no other way to say it. EPO, man. He cheated. And he's owned up to it. He has said, I'm not making any excuses. I cheated, and I take that responsibility. So I at least, you can't applaud a man for cheating, but I at least do applaud him for taking the responsibility, right, of saying, yes, I'm not.
It wasn't tainted steak.
That's it. I'm not making any excuses. I'm not trying to say I didn't deserve it. I deserve it. But he got stripped of the belt. And now, he's saying, look, nobody ever beat me for that belt. That's still my title as far as I'm concerned. I don't think people necessarily support him in that claim because, I think people have kind of, unhappy with the fact that he did cheat. But, he's trying to erase that. He's trying to work past it, and he's trying to claim that belt back. Not exactly any love lost between these two. Aljamain has no problem just, taking shots at him, calling him like TJ Dilleroyd and, they're making quotes of like, yeah, that guy really moves the needle, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, just taking shots at him. But stylistically, it's a great fight because Aljamain is an incredible grappler. He's a guy that if he gets on your back, you're in trouble, man. As he calls himself, the human backpack, the human Jansport, the human anaconda. Mm-hmm. I mean, you do not want that guy on you, and he's got great grappling, but you got to get there. TJ Dillashaw, solid wrestling, solid movement, as you said, great striking. Really has that movement on the feet, that kind of offbeat and crazy rhythm, and will never be a stationary target for you to grab hold of. So I like the odds in this one. I lean slightly towards Aljamain Sterling here, but this ain't a layup, that's for sure, man. This is a tough shot.
Hey, listen, have we seen TJ Dillashaw beat astronomical odds in the past?
Yes, we had. The Renan Barao, they counted him out. He won it there. I mean,
Renan Barao was the unstoppable Renan Barao back in the day until TJ Dillashaw came and just outclassed him. I
mean, look, you look at the wins. Yeah, outclassed Renan Barao. You're absolutely right about it. I mean, that dude was unstoppable at the time. He's got wins over John Lineker. He's got wins over Cody Garbrandt. He got a win over Corey Sandhagen, who's a top contender. Did have the loss to Henry Cejudo. He wasn't really thrilled with the stoppage in that one. It was just 32 seconds in. He got clipped. Hated that. Split decision loss to Dominic Cruz, who's a UFC Hall of Famer. I mean, look, this dude is for real. TJ Dillashaw, I think a lot of people, once he got busted, kind of jumped off the TJ Dillashaw train and really kind of started to throw some hate his way. And I understand that. I completely agree with that, man. Somebody cheats. I understand why people aren't going to be in support of him. But to take away from his skills as a fighter and to discount him or diminish what he's capable of doing would be a very big mistake. And I don't believe Aljamain Sterling has done that. As much disdain as he may have for what TJ Dillashaw has done, I do not believe he's discounted his skills as a fighter. So this should be a great matchup.
I'm really interested to see what type of TJ Dillashaw we get. If we rewind 6-8 months ago, whatever it was, Corey Sandhagen, he torqued his knee to shreds in that fight. And he busted him up too. Are we going to see a guy that is that nimble again? I mean, anybody knows you're caught in these heel hooks, you're caught in these ankle locks, you're caught in all this. You may not tap to him a lot of times, but it's doing major damage. Yeah. On a grappling tournament, you're going to tap to it, right? But when you have pay-per-view points on the line, when you have all this, they're like, screw it, I can handle the pain, I'll handle the surgery, I'm going to get that cheddar. You know what I mean? But I want to see what he comes back as.
All right, it's a fair question. Those are just question marks. That's a very fair thing to ask, right? I mean, when somebody does have an injury like that, when they do have a layoff like he's had that he's returning from, you just wonder, what am I going to see? At what point, is the body diminished a little bit, or is the timing diminished a little bit? So I don't think that's an unfair question to ask. That's simple. Hey, what are we going to see? If he is operating at 100%, if he is that guy, he's going to be a challenge. But at this high level, man, as you know, at the UFC championship level, we're talking about fractions that make a difference. You know what I mean? If he comes in and he's 97% of who he is, that's a big opportunity for Aljamain Sterling. So this is a very fair question. I think we're gonna see it very early on because again, he does it. It's that rhythm, it's that movement, it's being difficult to track down. That's what TJ Dillashaw built his career out of. And if he's not able to do that, it's going to be a problem.
So we got Aljo 21-3 favorite versus TJ Dillashaw 17-4. I mean, these guys are going to be tailored. Their careers are tailor-made for this moment. Co-main event of the Super Bowl-ish card that is UFC 280 in Abu Dhabi. Guess what? The man everybody loves to see, the personality man himself, Sugar Shane O'Malley, 15-1 versus controversial loser of that Aljo fight right before, Peter Yan. And if we want to talk about a step up in competition, this is not a little bit of a step. Not a big step. This is a monumental, ginormous step up in competition for Shane O'Malley. I'm excited to see it, but this is a jump, a leap. It's time to put some hustle behind that muscle in this one, right?
Yeah, and you know what I've been saying about this one, Eric, since it first got announced, because Sean O'Malley is fun to watch, right? I mean, he's an incredible athlete. He's an incredible personality as well, right? I mean, he comes in with the multicolored hair. He talking about the sugar show, and he is a showman. There's no question about it. But a lot of people have kind of doubted him a little bit, right? Because they've slow played him a little bit. I mean, he's still very early in his career. I think the route that he's taken has been smart, and he's openly said it, and I don't think people liked hearing it, but it's absolutely smart, right? He said, "Look, for the contract I'm on, for the type of money I'm making right now, I'm not going to fight those top guys. I'm going to fight, these kind of lower tier guys and make my way up there." And I don't think people love to hear that because they want to hear, "Oh, I'm fighting the baddest dudes on the planet. I'm going to go out there. I'll fight anybody, anyone, anyway." And it's true. You should say that, but it's not smart business when it boils down to it, which is what this is about.
It don't make dollars. It don't make sense.
This is called prize fighting for a reason. You are fighting for a prize, and it is that paycheck. So he's kind of slow rolled it up here. But now, as you said, the step up. I mean, to go from Holly and Paiva and Pedro Munoz to now fighting Peter Yan, the former champ, I mean, the top guy in the division. Respect to Sean O'Malley for saying, you know what? Yes, I'm ready, and I will take on this challenge. And it's crazy because of where they stand in the rankings. But if Sean O'Malley wins this, it's not out of the question that he gets a title shot based on this because of who he's beating, the former champ, the clear number one contender, and he's got all that hype around him as well. I mean, this guy, legit, I mean, the numbers that he pulls, because the Sugar Show is fun to watch, but this stylistically is a tough matchup. Talking about the odds, though, I will say, and maybe it's just me, I feel like this is a more competitive matchup than the odds would indicate. And I'm not trying to doubt Peter Yan. He is a phenomenal fighter, but I believe that I do see the talent in Sean O'Malley. And this is a tough test. It's by far the biggest test of his career, but I believe he can show up and win this fight. So I'm a little intrigued by the odds here, and I'm just very, very intrigued by this fight stylistically.
So I was talking to a friend of mine, just a few days ago, and he was like, "Oh, Peter Yan is gonna just blow through O'Malley." And I said, "What? You may be right. You may be right." But what a lot of people, I believe, are discounting in this, styles make fights. And you're looking, I don't know how big O'Malley is. He's tall, he's long, he's rangy, he's lengthy, and he knows how to use that range. Now, on the contrary, Peter Yan, he's got to get inside. He's got to bust you up from the beginning. He's got great boxing, great power, great kickboxing, great footwork, but you have to close that gap. And we haven't really seen anybody close that gap on O'Malley yet, save for him breaking his ankle in one fight.
That's what I'm saying, and I'll throw the stats out there because you're right. Just you realize when you look at them in your head, you know what's going on. But I'll give you the exact figures. The reach, 72 inches for O'Malley to 67 for Peter Yan. The leg reach, 40 inches for O'Malley to 38 for Peter Yan. And if you're just talking about the actual height, it's 5'11" versus 5'7". So you're going to see that. As you know, the height is one thing, but it's really that reach that you're looking at, a 5-inch reach. So what does that mean? That means that from 5 inches further away, Sean O'Malley can hit Peter Yan, and Peter Yan can't hit Sean O'Malley. So if he's able to use that and to stay at range, and I think Sean O'Malley has the ability to do that. Like, you think about how slick he is on the feet. I mean, these two guys, their footwork, their movement on the feet, it's top notch. It's as good as they go. But if you got two guys of similar speed, of similar creativity, of similar movement, but one guy has 5 inches further reach where I can strike you from 5 inches further away than you can strike me, that means something to me. So I'm not trying to take away from Peter Yan at all. Phenomenal fighter. So fun to watch. His striking is phenomenal. His power, everything he does is great. I just feel like, is Sean O'Malley the underdog? Yes, Sean O'Malley is the underdog because he hasn't accomplished what Peter Yan has accomplished just yet. But stylistically, man, I just feel like this is a closer matchup than I said, as the odds indicate, which I think, you look at Sean O'Malley at like plus 250 in some spots. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I have the odds. I had the odds of this morning of O'Malley plus 255, Peter Yan minus 305, meaning you have to bet $305 to make $100. That seems a bit of a stretch to me with what we just talked about. But as you said, they want money coming in. This line will close, I believe, by fight night or fight day. But the one thing that and this is just me from afar, like somewhat of an expert, not really an expert though, is the one thing O'Malley probably can't be doing in this fight are a lot of those spinning attacks. Would you agree?
I would agree with that. I think he can stay away from that. I mean, I do think he likes to have a little fun out there. As we said, he's a showman. He likes, but I think he realizes this is not a fight you play around in, right? You've got to be focused. You've got to be dialed in, and you want to stick to the fundamentals. Yes, have some creativity, have some movement. He's going to do all that, but I would agree with that as well, because if you miss on those strikes, you have now closed the distance for your opponent. When you throw those spinning attacks, if they land, they're amazing. But if they miss, you are now essentially, nose to nose in a clinch type situation inside, because that's what Peter Yan's going to be trying to do. He's going to try to get inside, and if he's able to get inside and be effective, it's going to be a tough one for Sean O'Malley. If Sean can stay at range and stay away from him, use that long jab, use the teeps and the front kicks to keep him away, and try to make it a distance fight. I think that's where he's going to be most successful. So I agree with you. I think the line probably will tighten up a little bit, but this is, to me, a lot of guys will say it's a dog or pass type situation. You know what I mean? Where I just can't lay 300 to win 100 on Peter Yan, because I feel like it's more competitive than that.
I 100% think it's more competitive than that, but I got to look at it from the other side too, right? So you have a guy in Peter Yan who, his last 2 fights against Aljo, having to fight up a lot of times from the bottom position, because Aljo is just the dog in this wrestling, And each fight, Peter Yan was able to hurt him early, right? And then the tide kind of shifts a little bit. This fight, not so much. It's no secret what O'Malley wants to do. He wants to stay up there, use his range. But Peter Yan, he trains out of Tiger Muay Thai out in Thailand. You don't think he's striking every single day with 6-foot long, rangy Muay Thai fighters? He is probably just chomping at the bit to finally get somebody who's just going to stand and bang with him.
That's a good point. I think it's going to be a fun fight, because that it's, as you said, by starting, styles make fights, and stylistically this is fun. But what did I say? What's great about all these matchups is not only are they stylistically great fights, not only they have great stakes, but they just have great storylines as well. I mean, this is Peter Yan, who's trying to get back to the title, who believes he should have beat Aljamain Sterling, believes he did beat Aljamain Sterling. Not making it personal, but just wants that opportunity to fight him again. Meanwhile, Sean O'Malley, the guy that looks like the next level potential, looks like the next superstar, has been, from Dana White's Contender Series, smoking weed with Snoop Dogg and getting all the attention to where
O'Malley!
But this is the moment right now. You go from flash to substance in this opportunity right here. So, I mean, love this fight.
I love this fight too. But from three-headed monster, I'm going to call it a 3 main event, even though I'm not going to disrespect Oliveira. He's the main event. In my opinion, he's the champion. He's the man to beat. What fight, from a fan perspective, are you most excited to see?
Oh, that's a good question. To me, I mean, look, stylistically, for the casual consumer, I think Peter Yan and Sean O'Malley is probably going to be the most fun, or has the most potential for just crazy stand-up fireworks, right? And that's the thing, that even if you don't know much about mixed martial arts, if you see 2 dudes going out there and striking, you understand that. Charles Olivera and Islam Makhachev, to me, is the most intriguing fight, because of how high level these guys are, and the win streaks that they're on and what they represent. But and I hope it becomes a jiu-jitsu matchup. You know what I mean? I'm hoping this thing goes to the ground and we just see this high-level grappling between these two. But I do understand that to the casual consumer, maybe, they see those high-level grappling exchanges and they don't necessarily understand what's going on. I mean, that's some subtle nuances and some, understanding that you might not get. So to me, the most meaningful, the most impactful, the most is Oliveira versus Makhachev. But if I'm saying what might end up being a fight of the night, or what might end up being the most memorable, it might end up being Yan and O'Malley. But that's why this is so great. It's a card where you're not looking at one fight, you're looking at all the fights.
So Oliveira versus Islam, and you said you want to see a jiu-jitsu match. I want to see a jiu-jitsu match here. I think that distance is going to close. Islam's going to get him taken down. And this is the fight within the fight here. Can a grinding wrestling / sambo style of jiu-jitsu negate crazy guard? That's the fight within the fight for me.
I completely agree. It's going to be That's where you have to look. And I think Islam Makhachev is very dangerous when he's on top. As you said, kind of that top game, wrestling base. He's very dangerous there. But what Charles Oliveira is so good at is creating scrambles, is just creating moments out of nothing. You know what I mean? That's what makes him so dangerous, is that, yes, his guard game is incredibly dangerous. If he's working from his back, he's successful there. But it's the fact that no matter what position you're in, no matter where you're moving, he has an opportunity to grab an arm, to grab a leg, to grab a neck. I mean, again, he doesn't have one submission. He has all the submissions. He has everything. You cannot make one. And that's what makes a dangerous grappler so difficult to deal with, especially over the course of 25 minutes. And look, Charles Olivera has evolved into the point that it's not like he's only grappling. Like, he's dangerous on the feet as well. So you got to be careful there. He can hurt you there. But when you can be winning the fight for 4.5 rounds, for 23 minutes, you can be dominating the fight, and you make one mistake, you lose focus for one moment, you make one positional error, and he snatches up an arm, snatches up a leg, snatches up a neck, and your night is over. And that's what makes Charles Olivera. That's it. That's it. That's what makes Charles Oliveira so dangerous. But, Islam Makhachev is that guy, is that focus guy that does nothing but this his entire life. So intrigued by this, man. I cannot wait for this main event. I'm
pumped. We're all pumped. Return to pay-per-view. UFC 280, Abu Dhabi this weekend. Fun on Friday. We get something fun on Friday. Another one championship this Friday, Amazon Prime, in prime time. A lot of people may not know a single name on this card. It's going to be fun. I can promise you that it is going to be fun.
Yeah, listen, one championship, that's one thing, this new deal with them and Amazon Prime Video, where these cards are airing on Friday night in North America, in the U.S. and Canada on Amazon Prime. This is their opportunity to really start to get people to know them. And we've talked about it here before, but I'll just say it again. I love where one championship is right now. I love what they're doing because it's different. It's something unique. You see it. It's this huge over-the-top presentation. It's like Pride was back in Japan years ago. The big board and electronics and, pyrotechnics. And I mean, they'll do it all. So it's a big presentation, but then the product itself is different in the fact that, yes, you get MMA, which we're all fans of, but you get Muay Thai, you get kickboxing. And, oh, by the way, Muay Thai in the 4-ounce gloves. So, I mean, it's dangerous, man. They're out there ripping it with those small gloves. You get submission grappling as well. And what that has allowed them to do is that, okay, yes, in the world of mixed martial arts, yes, one is competing with the UFC, with Bellator, with PFL to get, who can get the best fighters, who can get the biggest names, who can get them on their roster. And that's tough, right? Because you're all bidding for the same pool of athletes. But then when it comes to Muay Thai, to kickboxing, to submission grappling, they're not really competing with anybody. So they're able to go out there and sign the absolute best in those disciplines to the organization. So you're seeing, not only are you seeing Muay Thai in 4-ounce gloves, but you're seeing it at the highest level. Not only are you seeing submission grappling, but you're seeing it at the highest level. So I love what they're doing. But this week, I think especially, there is a name on there that at least the hardcores will certainly be a fan of, and that is Hands of Stone himself, John Lineker, the Brazilian banger. I mean, this dude goes out there and gets, just a heavy hitter in a small division. Fights over in bantamweight over there, which would be kind of a flyweight over here. He's done it before. I mean, this dude can absolutely, and he's going against another guy that's looking to knock his lights out with Fabrice Andrade, a fellow Brazilian as well. So this main event on Friday night should be a lot of fun.
I'm going to tune in on Friday night. Before I wake up in the morning, I may have a cocktail or two to get me primed and ready for UFC 280 this weekend. We're wrapping up right now. John, you got any last comments about the Super Bowl-ish card we got this weekend?
I mean, you just can't miss this one. Just don't forget, all right, special time. It's going to be earlier in the day, but look, you're going to get your money's worth of this one. I just think it's just the stakes of these fights. It's worth it. There's a reason we're all excited. There's a reason the past couple of weeks we haven't been as into all the fight night cards because they've been great. But when we've had this looming specter of UFC 280 out on the horizon, that's all we were waiting for, man. This is going to be a fantastic card, top to bottom. I think the prelims start at 7 a.m. my time out here in Las Vegas. I don't care. I'm going to wake up, cup of coffee, and start watching some fights, man. I cannot wait for this card.
For inside information leading up to UFC 280, follow John Morgan on Twitter at JohnMorgan_MMA. You can catch some snide comments from me at E_MacLife on Twitter. Go ahead. Remember, subscribe, like, review, give us a thumbs up, thumb down, whatever. We love the feedback. Watch us on grindcitymedia.com or YouTube. Listen to us, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you stream all of your content. Man, I'm actually exhausted right now because I've been fired up this whole show. For John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Tune in next week when we recap all of this craziness on Cageside with John Morgan.